Hey guys, what's good? It's Tino here, and today we're going to be doing a review of the Kong movie. And here with me today is my brother Jay.
How's it going?
So, let's get into it. My initial reaction was, man, this was a fucking good movie because you got me to care about Kong, and this is coming from a Godzilla fan that does not really like to give King Kong any credit.
Yeah, I really gotta say, like, straight out of the gate, they didn't really waste too much time with a lot of unnecessary plot, which some other people could take some points from. They got right into it straight out of the gate. We saw King Kong. He was gigantic. He was awesome. And I really cared. Like, they really made me care throughout the movie of his well-being, caring to know more about him, and just figuring out more about him as a monster and just enjoying the movie, as opposed to just waiting for parts where I got to see my favorite creatures.
Kong in this movie was fucking massive, and this is coming from a purely objective fan point of view. Kong was originally 40 feet tall, and they made this motherfucker as tall as mountains. They made him fucking steroided out. They made him highly realistic looking. You know, they were just giving shots out to Harambe left and right.
Yeah, I do gotta say, and this is purely from the fanboy Godzilla side of it, initially Godzilla was 40 feet tall when he first came out, but what they're doing with this film is something pretty awesome, is that they're setting up the fight with him versus Godzilla to be something of a more even proportion fight, where it's going to be more, not one-sided, as us Godzilla fans like to see it be. But yeah, definitely made him gigantic. His shoulders were even with the mountains, and right as you saw him from that first sunrise scene, he was just a force to be reckoned with.
Alright, so one of the first monsters outside of Godzilla that we were introduced to was a giant octopus. And it comes in a scene where Kong is drinking water, and there's not much to the creature other than it is a giant octopus, which is quickly turned into some fucking sushi.
Yeah, he straight up just stomped on his head and just ate him while he was still alive and kicking. You could see it wiggling in his mouth as it went down. Kong did not care for him at all. The second one that we saw, not too far off from that, which my personal, for the movie, was really cool, I thought. They had a giant sort of bamboo-legged spider. He stabbed straight through some dude's mouth, through the back of his head, which is super metal. But I hate spiders. It creeped the shit out of me. But as a character and as a creature, the fact that it could shoot down those things and it had the big claws, it really gave you a lot of tension, both in meeting the creature and just seeing what it was capable of and the way that they went about killing it. Really intense scene.
Sam, if you guys are afraid of spiders, this motherfucker is...
Close your eyes.
Yeah, unless you're just only scared of realistic looking small spiders, this motherfucker will creep you out a bit. Another creature they had in was, they called them, well, in Samuel Jackson's words, they were some ugly ass birds.
Yeah, the chainsaw nose.
They were basically small pterodactyls with chainsaws for noses. Yeah. And they knew how to use them fairly effectively.
Samuel Jackson shot one and they sort of scattered to the wind, but you know, right off that you thought maybe they weren't so interactively aggressive, but later on, as our people were escaping on the makeshift boat, they just snatched up together. They'd been complaining the whole movie, and we saw sort of a midair arm amputation. Really brutal. Thumbs up for that one.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to complain. They definitely gave him something to complain about. Yeah. I mean, I'd be bitching too if you fucking sawed off my arm.
Yeah, and the last one was just the buffaloes. They're just sort of some native creatures, sort of passive. More just to flesh out the environment than anything. They were super cool looking. Big. They kind of had like a dinosaur feel to them when they came out of the water. They had, you know, moss sticking off from their big horns and stuff. So really fleshed it out nice.
Yeah, they're probably one of the more realistic looking things outside of Kong, just because they were basically a giant water buffalo, and the only real modification to them was the size. The Iwis are the native people on this island, and they cut themselves to look like the environment, which to them is their writings that they put on the walls.
Yeah, that's where we met. I forget what his actual name was, but
Dale from Step Brothers.
Dale from Step Brothers. That's where we saw he had been basically living for 28 years since he had been to the island. He had gotten to know the people pretty well. They didn't speak, but he was slowly going crazy, so he managed to find a way to talk with them without actually talking. So that's where we met them. That's where we found out a lot about King Kong's lore, which was really cool because for fans, what we always want is you to explain where this thing came from, how it came to be, what its purpose is, and they served that with style. They had the cool paintings that lined up with the stones. Dale's character, he let you know what was going on, and that this King Kong wasn't the first, that the two parents had been killed before this. So we knew that our Kong had already sort of an instinctual hatred for the skull crawlers.
And getting into the skull crawlers.
Holy shit.
The skull crawlers are basically a fucking they're basically a chest with a tail with a
tiny ass head. Pretty much anybody you see at the gym. When the first reveal of them, you see him eating the carcass of a creature, and you see a little head poke up, and you're like, oh, he's not that bad, and you just see the shoulders pop out from up top, and you're like, oh,
holy shit,
boy, that's a terrifying creature. But yeah, King Kong doesn't have too much trouble dispensing of the little ones. He goes over and just breaks their neck and stuff. It's sort of his purpose for the island, really.
Yes, it is the check and balance of the island, whereas those two are the biggest and baddest that the island has to offer, so in turn they keep themselves in check with natural competition.
Yep.
And the smaller ones really serve no purpose other than to infuriate Kong, and the giant one is the one that really serves the purpose of natural competition.
Yeah.
And boy, that was a fucking competition.
Good God. That was one of the best fight scenes that I've ever seen. I mean, they in previous Kong movies, they tried to have him in sort of a more jungle, Triassic type landscape where you had dinosaurs running around, you had big old bugs. But this one, they really took some cool liberties where they made their own creatures for it. And the Skullcrawler King, as we'll call him, that dude put up a fight. Like, he would not go down. It took everything Kong could throw at him, and it just kept coming back for more. Really ending the fight. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, stop now, because Kong straight up disembowels this guy.
Slits his fucking throat.
And he keeps coming. He keeps coming until Kong just rips his guts out. It's amazing.
He means ripped his guts out in a literal sense.
Yeah.
The end clip with Godzilla's emergence.
Holy shit. The way that they tied everything together with this, the fact that they had cave drawings of Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, really got the hype going for this, really got us excited. Because, I mean, to see the paintings that they had on the walls, similar to the ones that they had on King Kong, really felt that they had been stumbling upon these sites like Skull Island for a while, and they were just sort of piecing the puzzles together. So the fact that they included this at the end, so make sure you watch, stay to the end so that you can see it. It was incredible to see that. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and in saying that, if you want to see it, it's at the end of the credits, but let me tell you something, they have fucking credits for days.
Yeah, you're gonna be sitting there like 20 minutes before it even comes on.
No, it's not 20 minutes, it's about like 5-7 minutes, but just get on your phone, go on Snapchat, check, let everything load. It's gonna be a minute. Ties into Godzilla. The first thing that made me pick up on that it was gonna tie into Godzilla was the reference of Mudos when Samuel L. Jackson is in a argument with John Goodman, and he states that he works for Monarch, which to me was also a reference to Mothra. And when he said MUTOs, massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, that made me immediately think of Godzilla 2014, because in Godzilla 2014 they didn't bother naming the monsters, they just simply called them MUTOs. They just called it the female MUTO and the male MUTO, so that made me have a strong feeling that they were going to tie it into Godzilla.
Yeah, and you really felt it, because I mean, I noticed that after the Pacific Rim movie came out and all those monsters were classified as kaijus and they were called kaijus so much throughout the movie, I feel like Godzilla, Toho, and Legendary kind of got together and they were like, look, we're not going to call them kaijus anymore because it's getting burned out with that movie there, so we're going to come out with something new. And their new term for these creatures is now MUTOs.
Hype. Hype is the best way to describe the feeling that you get in this movie, and by that I mean throughout the movie you just feel a sense of fucking amp coming into your body. It's just such a well executed movie in regards to, if you have a sweet spot for large monsters such as Godzilla or
King Kong
or fucking Gamera if you're a bitch.
Yeah, there's always those fans.
You're gonna fucking get extremely hyped throughout the movie, because they do a very good job in this movie of keeping
The watcher entertained.
keeping the watcher entertained and
Caring about the monster.
yeah, and actually showcasing the monster enough and not giving you only 2 minutes of the monster and
Yeah.
you know,
It's not a
an
teaser.
hour and 40 minutes of characters that you really have no ties to. Because in this movie they actually do get you to care about the humans, and I did not give one single fuck about the people in Godzilla 2014.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Godzilla, that movie really did have so much of a heavy focus on the character that you really forgot why you were there. I mean, we had a total of, what, 7 to 10 minutes of Godzilla in total.
Not enough.
And the MUTOs, you know, even less than that probably. So you didn't really get a good feel for them. You didn't get really much of anything other than the teasers. Even the battle at the end didn't feel long enough, you know?
Yeah.
But it did drive the point that he was an apex predator, and when he found his prey, they were done. So he got that feeling across, but you really didn't see enough of him to where you felt satisfied. This one, even at the very end, he's just there standing and, I mean, beating his chest, and that's all you need. It's the end, it's him at the end, it's him at the beginning. You see him throughout the entire movie. He even sort of feels like he has a bit of character development himself.
Sure.
When he meets the humans and he sees one, and the lady, she puts her hand on his face and he's just like, okay, you guys are cool, you know, you're not gonna fuck me up. And then all of a sudden, boom, Samuel Jackson on the other side, you know, lighting Tiger Bomb all over the jungle's nuts, showing the other side of humanity. So in one way they were sort of like the good and the light of the people that King Kong sort of gleaned from that. And it's not all about people are bad, but not all people are good. So it showed that he grew as a character as well. Alright guys, and just a little end piece if you didn't think we were uninformed on anything. I want to show you how deep we go with these monsters. And if you ever have a question, somebody doesn't do this unless they're completely immersed in the culture. And with that, catch you guys next time.